Hey, welcome back to The Irrational, the podcast where we discuss various pieces of media and the fears that they've instilled in us. Thank you for joining me yet again here in my cabin deep in the heart of Chicago, Illinois. I'm doing pretty good. You might notice that my neighbor with his chains and moaning is back. Great. It was funny. I was cleaning up all of the stars with the circles around them and shit, and like a bunch of other weird symbols, like all over my floor, left over from whatever, I don't know, party those vagrants had while I was gone. And I was kind of concerned, like, oh, is this scrubbing too loud? Am I disturbing my neighbor? And then I realized, like, fuck that guy. He's always so loud. And then I realized I haven't heard him in days. Like, since I got back, pretty much, I hadn't heard him. So I was, like, really pumped. Like, oh, shit, did he move out? And then the moment I finished cleaning the last symbol off the floor, boom, like I summoned him. Like, he just starts making all this noise again. So I don't know what to do. I can't complain to the landlord because his wife keeps claiming he died 20 years ago. But I don't know. Maybe I'll email him. I think I have his email around here somewhere. Whatever. I'll be fine. I'll handle it. So this week, joining me is the hilarious Zach Peterson. You're going to love Zach. He is awesome. We talk about alien abductions and fears and humanity and small town panic and a bunch of really in-depth shit that somehow tangentially relates to the topic at hand. It was a really good conversation. I'm pumped. It's a good episode. I really think you guys are going to enjoy it. Like usual, we plug everything at the end of the episode. So without further ado, Zach Peterson. I heard you on... Was it Getting Around to It?
I think so. The one where I talked about Fire in the Sky. I think it would be the E.T. episode with Marty Rosa.
Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
I was listening to the E.T. episode of Getting Around to It. That's Zach's podcast with Kevin Brody. You should also check that out. It's a great podcast. And they were talking about E.T., and Zach brought up this movie Fire in the Sky. Mm-hmm. And you were talking about, like, it scared you so much as a kid and stuff, and I didn't even finish listening to the episode. I just immediately hit you up like, oh, you got to come on my podcast and talk about this movie.
Yeah, that movie fucked me up for a long time. And you watched the movie.
Yeah.
And I watched it again yesterday, and I watched it, and I was like, oh, this first, like, hour of it, it's like, well, this is sort of stupid.
Right.
This movie is not that great. This movie, like, there's not much to it. But then there's the last, like, 20 minutes of the movie where there's the abduction scene.
Right.
Where he's on the spacecraft, he's being drug around by aliens and, you know, cut open. And that's the part that fucked me up.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. Like, I can't, like, really reduce it to a feeling of, like, you know, I don't want to be isolated or whatever. I don't know what that is.
Right.
But I don't know. It scared the hell out of me.
And how old were you, do you think, when you saw it?
I was probably in junior high.
Okay.
Probably like 12 or 13 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great age to get fucked up by,
right?
by something. Yeah, but like you said, it is like the first probably solid hour of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's not much really happens. It's like mostly adult situation stuff, like just people like being suspicious of one another, afraid of the law, like small town shenanigans where people want to take the law into their own hand and stuff. So it was a little bit, when I was watching it, I was like, I don't know how this affected him all that much. Like, because the scene where they show it pretty early in the movie, him getting, not abducted, but they shoot him with the light and they think he's dead, so they drive off.
Yeah.
That's pretty early in the movie. And that I was like, okay, maybe that's just like a fear of his, so that really spoke to him. But I was like, I don't really see how this is all that scary. And then it does, even though it is not boring, but even though like nothing really happens, it tells a story like really well to where you kind of forget you're dealing with aliens. You're just worried about these guys, like they're like, if they're going to get like a fair treatment and shit with like the justice system and whatnot. Then, so you're in the story, and then it cuts to the abduction, like all the stuff that going on, like his flashback and stuff. And it's like, fuck, like it's so much worse because for an hour, you're really connecting with these characters and you're drawn in and you're like emotionally invested. And then they show that. And that's just such a like like a 180. Like it's just out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's really brutal and intense.
Yeah.
It's I imagine this what like an animal must feel like when it's captured or
Yeah.
something. It's I don't know. It's just this sort of powerlessness and uncertainty and being completely a fish out of water.
Yeah.
And not understanding what's going on and having no power to deal with it and just having to take it. It sucks.
Yeah. It is the like closest you could get to like I guess relating to an animal is just having no, because it's not just say you get like captured, like you're kidnapped or something like that. That's scary, but you at least have the like idea that like this is a person doing it to you, and you're like you can just like figure out like I don't know, maybe they're crazy, like I can exploit a weakness, like people are weak to a certain aspect, but it's like if you're abducted by aliens, like you just have no concept of what they're doing. So that's how animals feel. Like they look at people and they're like, what the fuck is this? I don't know how it thinks, like I don't know what it wants from me. And that's exactly it's just like it's such a terrifying, isolating
no ability to
idea.
Communicate.
You can't communicate at all.
I don't know, it's scary. And I was always into aliens and things like that. Like I remember growing up, and I grew up like when I saw this, I lived in the woods. I lived in the middle of nowhere in Iowa. So like going out from my dad's house to where my brother lived in a cabin on the property. So he had his own like little cabin. And so like he like go get your brother for dinner or something. So like I'd it's pitch black, middle of nowhere, and I just run. It's probably 200 yards and that's it, but that would just be the most intense situation where like I had to run from my dad's front door, and then I had a couple dogs like following me, and this run to my brother's thing. That was always terrifying.
I mean 20 feet in a pitch black situation like that, like out in the middle of the woods, is pretty scary. I can't imagine 200 yards.
And I mean with in Chicago and a lot of places you have light pollution, so you don't see like a lot of the stars. This is in the middle of nowhere, so you see all the stars. Like, oh, that one's moving, or or just you stare up at the sky and it's just infinite and mass and just ridiculous.
So you were into aliens before this movie, and then did this movie kind of like, I don't know, spoil your, like how much you would enjoy alien stuff? Like, did it scare you that much?
I think it stopped it from being trivial.
Okay.
Because my brother once said, and I think this is what kicked off my like interest in it, was like I had a dream where I got abducted by aliens and I woke up with leaves in my bed. That's what he said. Is it true? I don't know.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, oh man, this is real. This is real shit. So I went, I read books on it. We go to the library in grade school, and you just like check out the 2 books they have, and then read about it, watch everything I could on it, and then I watched this one, and it was like, holy shit! Like this is the most. It's a quote unquote true story,
right?
So it's like, oh, this is what really happens. All the other stuff is just
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because, so I watched it today, and I didn't. It's actually, this is the opposite of what I normally do. Normally, I don't have time to consume the media that people are going to talk about, so I just do as much research on it as I can. Today, I watched it, and I did zero research on it. So I wanted to ask you, like at the end, when it says like the little facts about their lives as they moved on, I was like, is this like an Animal House thing where they're just like telling you where these fictional characters were? Or is this based on the people that they based the movie on? Like, was this like a man claimed that this actually happened and then they wrote a movie around it? Like, I don't know the exact origins of this movie.
It was a book.
It was a book
that Travis Walton did write.
Oh, the man. So he wrote a book and about his claim to be a personal experience, and then they turned that into a movie.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. See, I didn't know that.
And I don't know if it's hold up to scrutiny over the past 30 years. I don't know. I haven't really paid attention because once I started getting like insanely afraid with it because I couldn't sleep, and it was I'd be up until 6 a.m. on school days just because of anxiety and fear and things like that of being abducted. And after that, I was like, all right, I can't do aliens anymore.
Yeah. I
can't deal with it because it's really affecting my life. When I did sleep, I'd have dreams of being abducted. I've had dreams of being chased by aliens, or I'd have to go sleep in. At that time I was going in between Omaha and the country because my parents got split custody or whatever. But I was when I was in the woods, I'd have to sleep in my dad's room on the floor.
Yeah.
Because I was too afraid to, sleep in another room. Or then when I was in Omaha, I'd sleep in my brother's room. But I could never sleep alone, because if I could, that means they'd come and get me. Because if someone else was there, then at least that they would take them or something. I don't know, but like some sort of protection against being abducted.
No, it helps. I don't know why it helps.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like, it's not like you want for them to be abducted over you or something like that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, it just like there's a protection there.
Yeah, or at least if something did happen, they would be there to know that you're not crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, or I don't know, but it's definitely comforting. I could only sleep if I was in someone else's room. And then after a while, people wouldn't let me sleep in their room because it just became too much, sort of like a crutch.
Yeah.
And I saw on this Dateline episode where someone said, I get abducted by aliens almost once a month. And they only come from behind me. So I was completely afraid of that, where I had to have my back against the wall. My bed was against the wall, so I'd sleep with my back against the wall in the corner.
Yeah.
So nothing could come from behind me. And so, like, even to this day, I can't sleep unless something's touching my back.
Yeah.
Because I slept like that for years.
No, same. I need to have bed. I like the bed up against the wall in a corner.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, my bed could only be in one place of the room because it was either not going to be two sides of it touching a wall,
mm-hmm.
or it could, like, then there's like another place where it could have done that, but then it would have been like overlapping the window a little bit, and that's worse than not even touching any walls, just having a window nearby. So like there's only one place. So I grew up making like with my back always to the wall. I always slept on my right side, and then now living with my girlfriend, our bed is in the middle of the room with only the back touching the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always little spoon because I need to have something on my back. So I like have her, like, even if we're not spooning, just like I need to like have her up against my back. Cause then like, which is weird, cause now I sleep on the left side of the bed. So now I sleep on my left side, even though for like the first 18 years of my life, I slept on my right side, but it's just like, I realize it has nothing to do with the sides. It's just having something touching my back.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a weird,
right?
Yeah. It's so weird.
Sort of almost probably Pavlovian, or it's like, all right, something touching my back, it's time to sleep.
Yeah. It feels, and it's like, well, it's silly because like when you're a kid, you put one blanket over you and it feels like a shield. That's just such a huge difference in terms of safety. And in reality, it changes nothing, you know, but that's the same thing with our back. Like, either way, we're probably going to get abducted or murdered or whatever your fear is if you're putting your back up against something,
Yeah, and you talked about the window. Like, having a window that you can see out of at night is, as a child at least, is the most terrifying thing in the world. Yeah. Because, there's limitless possibilities of things that could, come into view of the window. Yeah. And so your imagination just goes ape shit.
Especially, I was on the first floor. Mm-hmm. Fuck that. Like, keep windows closed at night when you're on the first floor. I don't want people looking in my house, That's creepy. My mom was always so mad because I had my blinds closed all the time, even during the day. Like, I just didn't like to have my windows open. But like, I don't know, if I'm like now like in our apartment where floors up, and I don't mind open windows anymore. Mm-hmm. But I also have never grown up with a fear of aliens at all. But I could see if you're worried about aliens, it doesn't matter how high up in the building you are. An open window might still be a cause for concern.
Well, for a while there, I was like, I want to be safe when I'm in the city. Yeah. You never hear of aliens coming to the city and abducting people. Because then there'd be all these people that see aliens in the city. And then that stuck with me for a while. And then I read a book that said there was a little girl who got abducted from the middle of London. I was like, well, if they can abduct someone from the middle of London, they can definitely abduct someone from the middle of Omaha. Yeah. So I'm fucked here, too.
So you, what do you currently believe, like, as far as abductions go?
I think aliens exist. I think just for the probability, there's something out there. Do I think that they are like they are portrayed in Fire in the Sky or like that? Well, it's hard to say. I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea. I mean, I just simply don't know. The fear's not there anymore. Maybe it can be when I go into like rural situations.
Yeah.
But just rural situations at night are just a terrifying situation.
Yeah, even without the fear of aliens, there's a whole bunch of other shit to be afraid of.
Right? Animals, drifters.
Yeah.
It's just isolation, being alone, feeling helpless in those situations. That's bad. I remember something that helped me get over it was I was asking my dad if I could sleep in his room because I watched some movie or something, and he's had enough, and he was pissed, and he yelled at me. He was like, "The fucking aliens aren't gonna come just because you saw some damn movie." It's like, well, you know what? Yeah, I guess they'd come if I saw the movie or not. All right, and so that started sort of the unraveling of the paranoia.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm not afraid of aliens anymore. No,
Yeah.
I don't. Just because I have no control over it, and sort of that letting go of thinking that if you do something different,
right,
then it'll change that. Where in reality, if aliens come to abduct you, you can't control it or fight it. So
yeah, I think that's this might sound silly. I think that's why I was never really afraid of aliens, is because they were so, like, I was just like, if they decide something's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like, I can't control that, like you sleep with your back like against the wall. They can nullify you with a ray, maybe. Like, who fucking knows? We don't know what their technology is. So it's just like, I was never ever afraid, because I guess it was like came from a place of submission. Like, I was just like, well, there's nothing I can do to fight about it, so why would I worry? But yeah, that's so, because I was afraid of everything growing up, but not aliens. Just never aliens.
It was so bad for a while.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I don't know. It could have been, like, if I didn't have aliens, I'm sure it would have been something else.
Sure.
But, like, aliens were the thing that I was just mortified of. And I had an older brother who fucked with me quite a bit growing up. And, like, sort of, I had these, like, supernatural ideas of what the world was. There's monsters and things like that. And then aliens, like, no matter where I read, it's like, oh, they're actually real. And I think that's maybe how that happened, is I projected all this other belief onto the things that I had when I was growing up onto aliens. And it's like, but these are real, and they will fuck you up.
Yeah, and I could see you being more susceptible to that in a rural area, because, like you said, the no light pollution, you're just seeing the sky, your imagination runs wild. And then most of the stories that you read about or, like, even see in fictional media is normally rural areas. Like, I mean, even like, E.T. was still a small town. It wasn't even like a city, The big city alien type of shit didn't really start coming out in movies until we were, like, I don't know, teenagers, So like, I could see, like, as a child, you growing up and just seeing all that and being like, oh yeah, this is where they come. Like, they're gonna come for me now. Yeah,
and as a kid and having a group of friends, in the country, every time you go out, like, we had this long dirt driveway because I lived by a river, and it was, we had our own, like, private drive that was a half a mile long, that we'd just be like, we're going to walk to the end of it and back because we have nothing else to do, and that way you just get away from parents and whatever. And every time you would, and at night, you'd be like, oh, what's that, red thing moving? And not equipped with the ability to sort of like, oh, that's a plane, that's a satellite, that's a planet. It was always a UFO. Yeah, it was always like, oh, we saw another UFO. You see UFOs at least once a week. Yeah, just seeing UFOs. So in my mind, is like, they're always out there. It's just a matter of when they want to come down and get you. Yeah, because you're always seeing them, and all your friends always see them, and I think it was just ignorance on what's actually in the sky. Yeah. Because you see everything, and sometimes things look like they move, and probably a lot of imagination has to do with that. Sure. Where you're like, oh, that one moved. I swear it moved. Yeah, because it is like, it's imagination, but it's also, like you said, you're walking to the end of a street for entertainment. It is like you're just filling in space with boredom. Like, I mean, I personally think that's like a great thing to have that. I feel like boredom is like a negative word. Sure. I personally think boredom is super important and awesome because it really lets your imagination run wild. Sure. Sometimes it runs wild in a way that is detrimental, but but yeah, like, that's, I don't know. And when you stare at the sky,
it does sometimes look like the stars are moving because you're trying to focus on like a pinpoint in like this black abyss, and it just, the way your eyes move naturally, you're like relating it like, I don't know, your depth perception is just so far skewed because it's so deep out there. So it just seems like they're moving around when they're not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's plenty of optical illusions with like, dots that are close together.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's moving. It's like, it's not moving. It's just your perception of it's moving.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. I also think that living in a rural area sort of creates this idea of isolation, not just with aliens, but like in reality, just in the world. And that's how like why people that live in rural areas their whole life are so fucking crazy. Yeah. Because they project their own fears upon the world. And I think that's all that was me projecting this, my fear of the cosmos, to the sky. Where I was like, oh fuck, anything could be up there and it's gonna hurt me.
Were there any like, did that like manifest itself in any other ways? Like, were you at all afraid of like how about like just space exploration? Like, were you afraid that like NASA was going to trigger something? Like, they should be messing around up there, or was were you more into it?
Not really. Like, I mean, just, I don't know. It seems like, you think about the fairy tales and folklore of Europe and how that's mostly because people were in the woods and they're like, oh yeah, crazy shit happens in the woods, don't have science to explain it, so it has to be something magical and whimsical. Yeah. And when you're out in the middle of nowhere and there's no one to explain it to you, like why things happen, it's definitely something strange and something sinister or paranormal. Yeah. And so growing up, you sort of create these own weird myths in mind, or always with aliens. Yeah. One time, me and my brother, this was when I was older, it was like 16 or 17 years old. We would, I got over this fear at this time. So we'd be out on the riverbank and we'd just like create a bonfire on the riverbank and just sort of hang out and smoke weed and, smoke cigarettes and things like that. And then once we heard a really loud hum, and then lights were like down the river. We were fucking terrified, but it was just a barge. You don't think you're gonna see a barge, but like for that first, like, because it was very slow moving, but that first 10 minutes, we were like, oh fuck, this could be anything. Yeah. This is. I remember the argument was like, this is a UFO. It's like, well, it's not fucking flying, so it's not. I was like, it's an unidentified floating object. Like we're fucked. They live in rivers too. Like just.
It's funny, like there's a forest preserve near where I grew up, and we would just go and smoke weed, hang out late at night. And like one time there's like a crackling in the woods behind us, and we all freaked out thinking it was like various things like murderers or bears and shit. Yeah. And it was probably like a deer maybe, or a raccoon. Like it wasn't, like for some reason a noise in the forest seemed abnormal. But it's like, no, it's just it's a sound. Like the forest isn't quiet all night when you're not around, like it's not just because it's like a noise of something behind you doesn't mean it's someone coming to kill you. Yeah. But like we all freaked out.
What's that? It's the open window again. Yeah. It's infinite possibilities. Exactly. So you're going to go to whatever your mind first goes to.
Yeah. Like I thought it was a dude. I thought it was just a crazy person. Like I said, we don't know what it turned out to be. It was probably just an animal. I thought it was like a crazy person. My other friend was convinced it was the cops, and he almost started running. A different friend thought it was a bear, and I was like, I don't think we even have bears in this forest preserve. Like it's not like some big ass wood. I mean, it's big woods, but it's in Homewood, like it's in the suburbs of Chicago. Sure. Like I was like, I don't think there's anything that big out here, but we all were convinced that it was something that mattered. Yeah, but it wasn't.
Even the woods by a city, which means there's just a higher, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, ability for it to have humans in it, or, someone that doesn't have a place to stay and means to harm you, because they have access to it instead of the middle of nowhere. It's like, what would some person be doing in the middle of nowhere?
Right. A person that's living in the woods in the middle of nowhere probably wants to avoid you. Yeah. Like they're not out to kill you. They just want you to not be in their part of the woods.
Yeah, exactly. I think that just has to do with rural living and just being uneducated on what things actually are. Yeah. And I don't know, my dad or, you know, anyone I've ever lived with, that we were never like nature people, you know, never like, oh yeah, we're going to, you know, track this deer and this is how you can tell that's what that, you know, like sometimes you see people that live in the country and like they can like recognize birds by their, you know, bird calls,
Yeah.
and footprints, and they know what's going on. So there's no fear of the outside because they understand what's going on. And I had none of that, but I was in it. So it was like, so I assigned meaning to all this insane shit.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously as a child, you just scare the shit out of yourself doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, it's funny because it is like you swap that, like the person that like knows all the bird calls and shit, you drop them in the city, they're going to be real, you know, at very least anxious, you know, and then they're going to start assigning weird judgments to like all these like freaks in the city and shit. And it's just people living their lives. So it's just like, it's just fear of the unknown. And then you start filling in all these blanks. It's like another thing is like, when you're in like that rural situation, you say you don't have like this general life experience. And then like what was the example? So it was the guy in the movie, he's just staring him down because he's confident that he killed him. And then everyone, like other people are even saying shit like, why haven't you made any arrests? Why haven't you made any arrests? And like, but it's just all these people that are like so confident that these men killed this man because they don't have any like other experiences. So they're just like, well, the first idea that came to my head is correct. Yeah. And then they are committed to it and they just stick to their guns and they're like, arrest these men. Like, why are they walking around free? And that's crazy. Just how like without like I don't know, it's just crazy how like they just fill in all these blanks and then it's just like, it's the truth.
I think that's what our minds do, because if we have the knowledge that we don't understand what the fuck is going on, then that's even more frightening than being wrong, I guess. Yeah.
It's really scary when you realize that you're wrong. Like, or that not so much wrong, but you realize like that you are potentially wrong. Like you just have no concept of what's going on. And you're like, fuck. Like, so then you just figure out something, you make it make sense to you. And then that's what happens with aliens. Like you just, you're like, this is a weird experience. It has to have been aliens. I don't know what else it could have been.
Right. Yeah. And even to step back further and sort of be a little bit more pretentious about it. I mean, that's why people, I think, cling to religion a lot. Yeah. It's because the world and reality is such a insane place that it's so hard to get a grasp on, put it all in this little box. So, you know, about how, you know, what morality is and, you know, where we came from and everything already explained to you. Well, that's comforting. That's easy. It makes things easier to sort of go day to day with. Yeah. So, you know, and they'd rather be wrong than not know anything, or at least admit to themselves that they don't know anything. Right.
And it is, religion is like a huge comfort. It's like, and because like it is like assigning meaning to stuff. Like say like way back in the day, like thousands of years ago, you've got like a bunch of people living together and then like a handful of them just up and die. Yeah. And you're just like, what the fuck? Like they were living how we were living. Why did they just die? Like, cause like you have no concept of like germs and shit. So like you don't understand that like people can get sick and some people have different like, I don't know, like immune systems and whatnot. So then you just start freaking out and you're like, well, they must have been sinners. Like they must have been doing bad shit. Yeah. So that's why they died. And then you just start making up like different little meanings for all these different things. And then, you're just filling in blanks.
Yeah. Because like if they die, they must have done something wrong. And if I'm alive, I must have done something right. Yeah. So they, you know, they're different and like, or the humors. So like, you know, the balance of the humors.
Fuck.
Where it's like, where there's, blood, blood is one. Yeah. Mucus is another. But it was like, you know, like bloodletting. Yes. Because people are like, oh, they're sick because they have too much blood. So let's get the blood out. It's like, well, that's fucking like now that sounds insane. Right. But at that point, it gave people an idea of like, oh, they just have too much blood. Let's get rid of some blood and they're going to be fine.
Yeah. And then it's like 80 out of 100 people die and they're like, they were just too far gone. We should have started the treatment sooner. But those 20 people that live, they're like, see, it fucking works.
Confirmation bias, right?
Yeah, confirmation bias.
Do you think we do that at all now?
Oh, constantly. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like, probably on less drastic scales, but it has to. I mean, like, this came up in, I think, Nicky Martin's episode. Like, someone goes, like, on a shooting spree or something.
Mm-hmm.
They go in the house and they find an Xbox. They're like, well, they played video games.
Sure.
And then it's like, yeah, but everyone fucking plays video games. Like, everyone has an Xbox. So what about the, 99.9% of people with Xboxes that aren't fucking killing people? But
sure.
That's what they see. They're just like, well, this is a thing. There's an Xbox. It's got to be tied to video games. Yeah. And I feel like that's less now. But, like, in the early 2000s, that was a huge scare. Was video games are turning children into killers.
Yeah. Yeah, that was there's a communication theory called cultivation theory.
Yeah.
George Gerbner's cultivation theory, which is, is the Xbox or the video games create violence in the person? And Gerbner would say yes, or were they say, let's use Call of Duty as an example. Yeah. Were they lured to a Call of Duty because they already had those violent urges, or is that where the violent urges came from? And it's like, well, if someone had violent urges, then they'd play that game. I mean,
yeah.
Just to, at least in my opinion, like, yeah, if I wanted to go out and shoot a bunch of people, or had that urge within me, then that's the kind of shit I'd play all the time.
Yeah.
Because it sort of gives at least a little bit of a release to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see that. But then it's just like, there's like another aspect of it where it's just like, when I'm playing games like that, I'm not thinking, in no way am I really considering like these digital puppets to be human. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I get that they're humanoid, but like, to me, if I'm playing Halo, which is aliens, or Call of Duty, which is supposed to represent humans, I'm not really like, I don't get any sort of difference in that.
Sure.
Like, I don't know. I mean, but there has to be something, like, this also came up with Nikki, like, it has to have some sort of like desensitization, like, it has to desensitize me in some kind of way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. To me, they're just digital puppets.
Well, yeah.
Like,
I mean, you can make that differentiation. I don't know if I said the word right.
Yeah.
You can make that, but other people, I don't think they can.
Yeah.
I don't think the video games or heavy metal TV, because it's always a new thing each generation.
Yeah.
Before video games, it was rock music or rap music, and before that, it was television or movies that are always, fucking corrupting the youth.
Yeah. I think it comes from two places. Is one, people don't want to consider the fact that everyone's different, and they get scared by people doing different things. And then two, people don't want to consider the fact that our brains are actually like super fragile, like computers, and like they could just fuck up. And so most of these people that are out there like committing these crimes have just severe mental illness. But in order to admit that, you have to admit that like you and your loved ones are at risk, and it could like happen anytime, like, and that we're all just like these flawed beings. So like, in order to combat admitting that, like, they just can't comprehend why a person would be that way. So they just have to find meaning, and they just point at whatever they'd like. Like, it's say this person is obsessed with sports.
Sure.
And then equally obsessed with playing Call of Duty. And then like the person sees this, like, just like, let's say a completely ignorant person to the world, they also love, let's say even that they love Call of Duty. They'll look at that and be like, well, it's not Call of Duty because I love Call of Duty and I'm normal. So it's got to be sports. Sports makes you aggressive. That's why they fucking killed people. So what it is just like, I can't relate to them on this thing, so that's what's wrong with them. And like, that's where I think it comes from, is people just wanting to distance themselves from a mentally ill person.
Yeah, because you don't want to accept any fault or any sort of anything in common with those who are quote unquote fucked up.
Yeah.
I also think that the culture we live in benefits from people being isolated and disliking others. I mean, like, I mean, geez, I'm gonna sound like a dick, but like, capitalism is based on the idea that we're competing with others, that others are trying to take what you have.
Right.
So I mean, basically, everyone else is the enemy.
Yeah.
And I mean that's an isolating fact right there. That's something that makes people aggressive and mean. and it creates fear because everyone else is taking your shit. So fuck everyone else.
Yeah.
And it's that weird individualism, and we celebrate so many fucked up things in terms of how we treat or view other people as obstacles, as people to be defeated in one way or another.
Yeah.
At least with an individualist culture. So, the reason why Call of Duty is such a, big deal and violent video games are such a big deal because it has that idea of an individual going through and affecting things in their way, in their almost fascist way. Like, Batman's a fascist because he puts his rule of law onto everyone else. And so,
right.
Sort of that idea. And it's celebrated to a degree of sort of being that one that affects things through strength and violence. And some people can take that and run with it too far.
Yeah.
Because obviously our culture celebrates that to a degree.
Mm-hmm.
Why are there so many fucking Bourne movies, John Wick, I'm gonna kick ass and do what I want.
Yeah.
And fine, that's to a degree, that's fine, but also to a degree, people can see that and have these fantasies of being John McClane and, saving the day, because no one thinks they're the bad guy.
Right.
No one thinks that they're doing wrong. They think they're doing right, at least, from their point of view. And they don't have to come to a consensus because it's the individual that matters and not the collective. And I think that's why there's so many mass shootings, why there's so many fucking survivalists. There's, those quote unquote NRA folks are like, a good guy with a gun. It's like, that's what we need. It's like, this ain't fucking Die Hard, dude.
Right.
No, we don't. We need just better people. We just need good people more often that don't fucking view other people as adversaries all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Fewer guns, better mental health care.
Exactly. Just fucking a culture that celebrates other people instead of fucking pits people against each other. Because that's all capitalism is. Now I just fucking sound like an...
No, it's fine. Because, it's like, even as far as just like, because like you've got the point of view of a character and you're into it. So like the people you named are like Bourne and John Wick and stuff. And they are pretty exclusively... Like John Wick's exclusively killing bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Bourne, maybe you could argue whether or not those people are bad, but the point is he's defending himself with all of his skills. Like he's not just out like killing people.
Sure.
So like there could be like the arguments made that those people aren't that bad because like they're fighting the good fight and all that shit. Mm-hmm. That could happen, even though but then it took us like 6 to 8 months after the finale of Breaking Bad for people to start talking about, oh wait, Walter White was the bad guy that whole time. Like we watched 5 or 6 seasons of that, loving Walter White and only wanting him to succeed, and like nobody realized like, oh, he's the bad guy. Like even though he pretty much like, I don't know, directly only killed bad guys, he's still responsible for the deaths of how many innocent people just by producing meth. You never stop and think, but it's just because we're like, well, he's the main character. Yeah. We got to root for him. And then, we're just celebrating this one individual and everyone else is suddenly the bad guy. Like everyone hated Skylar because she was difficult, that her husband wanted to be a meth dealer. Like, it's like, no, Skylar's right. She should have left him. She should have taken that kid and, gone into like protective care.
Yeah. And I think they launch off the series with him creating meth because he has cancer and needs to pay the bills. Yeah. So it's like, oh, this is sort of noble. This is like, it's a moral gray area. Yeah. And then
because everyone has had that thought where they're like, I'm desperate. What am I? Would I do a crime? Like, would I rob somebody? Like, not that like, probably not rob someone, but probably something more like white collar, Yeah. But you do think like, what could I get away with? And then you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. So then when you see that, you're like, it's kind of like that release of like, oh, he's going to do it. He's in a desperate situation. He needs to do this to save his family.
Did you talk about The Cave with Nicky Martin? There's an old parable. I don't think it's Plato the Cave, because Plato is like the flames on the cave walls.
Yeah, that's the only cave I know.
Yeah, there's another parable. It's in philosophy, but I don't know where it's from. I don't know enough, but there's like, I think the riddle, like a Schrodinger's cat riddle, where it goes, there's a large man that's leading the group through a cave, and there's an opening, and he tries to get through, and he gets stuck. and there's no way for you to enter or exit the cave without removing him. But if you remove him, he dies.
Yeah.
And the rest of the group is in the cave. So either he can stay there and live in that opening and everyone else dies, or you kill him for the greater good.
Yeah.
What's moral?
Yeah. That's like, there's the one where it's the same thing pretty much. It's like a train is going to hit 5 people on the tracks. You can flip a switch so it goes on a different track and it misses those 5 people. Or let's say 20 people. I think it's a bigger stakes. 20 people, it's going to miss those people. There's a single person on this track, though, that will die. And it's like you let shit run its course, you know? And it's not your fault, I guess, because that's just the way things were meant to happen. Or you flip the switch and you kill that man.
Sure.
And then that's the whole, like, do you save 20 people and sacrifice one man?
Yeah.
Like, it's like a gray area of responsibility and guilt.
But if you're, say, an individualist who, let's say for the sake of argument, is a Christian and says these 5 people do not share your faith, well, does that make them good or bad? Are they expendable now?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's because you have in my opinion, a unfounded fear of other people. You say, oh, that's fine if they die. And that's essentially nationalism in a nutshell. It's like, these are different. We can invade them and kill them.
Yeah, exactly. That's
know.
like, on the Cracked podcast, they were talking about, there was a man that proposed this idea of the president, like, like the dude with the football, like the steel briefcase that hangs out like with the president or whatever. So like, it's like the launch codes of the nukes, like that concept. This dude proposed the idea of the briefcase has a knife in it, and the launch codes are in like a metal like capsule underneath that the secret agent's heart, like surgically implanted. So the president has to kill him to cut him open to get the things, just so he's faced with humanity before launching nukes.
Sure.
So he has to do it with his bare hands before doing it blindly and just pretending that, like, because like you're not seeing it, it's so detached, you're not realizing. But that was immediately shot down, of course. They never went forward with that idea. But not that that's a good idea, but it's like that's a good way to think about that shit, because you have to like consider these people as humans. You can't just. But yeah, like you said, you just start celebrating individuals, and then you can forget about the rest of humanity.
Yeah, and then but everyone else is individuals, but it's all of a sudden your individuality is more important than everyone else's individuality. Yeah. Have you ever read the book Slapstick by Vonnegut? No. There's a part. It's a post-apocalyptic, but it's from the point of view of the last president of the United States, and he talked about how he implemented this plan where he gave people new middle and last names, and so that would mean that they have a whole different new family. So people would have middle names like Daffodil. Yeah. And then so people from around around the globe would have the middle name Daffodil. And so it's like, I can't go to war with someone in Iraq because they have the middle name Daffodil. They're part of my people. Yeah. So it's creating a bigger global community, and sort of people have a stake in the game of actual humanity. Yeah. Which I think is an interesting thing, because there's so much. Because I don't know, this is more fucking hippy dippy bullshit, but it's we have more in common than we have. I don't know. This is not something that needs to be said. People know this. Yeah. But I think that's what it's sort of making the point of, is that we find reasons to say that we're different when there's easily more of the same. And so if you just even a small thing like a made up middle name or last name, then you see your own humanity in other people. Yeah, it's just like exploiting that tribal mentality in our brains for the greater good. Just like it makes them humans, because it's like, well, we've got that in common. Like, there are only so many daffodils in the world, and I'm part of that group. I want to keep our numbers up. Right. And yeah, that's interesting. I haven't read any Vonnegut, and I constantly told that I need to. Oh, he's just, I don't know. He was my guy in high school, you know, and in college, and I just read so much of his and not much else. But going back to Fire in the Sky, like the way that the aliens,
we got so far.
We got really.
It
far
all
away.
makes sense though, because it is most of it. We were just talking about like Small Town Panic, and it's like that's on a broad scale. So it all this tangent made sense to how we got here. I just don't know how we got this far.
But the way that the aliens treated the person, treated Travis Walton. Think about how the settlers treated the Native Americans.
Yeah.
And how just the colonists treated anyone, because they didn't view them as part of their group.
Yeah.
And if you watch Fire in the Sky and you'd see, how the aliens treated Travis, you'd be like, man, those guys are dicks. It's like, well, I mean, they see that as a fucking fish.
Yeah.
Have you seen how you treat a trout?
Yeah.
You just grab it and you fucking take the hook out.
Yank the hook out. Hopefully it didn't swallow it and you don't have to accidentally pull its guts out. Oh, shoot. It's dead now.
Yeah,
but it's not dead yet. It's like dying.
Yeah.
And it's just like, so then when you see this movie, you are like, what the fuck? Like he's screaming. Like he's like, give him anesthetic or something, but they don't care. This is just like this thing. They're like, it might as well be a plant. Like they don't care. They're dragging him on the ground, throw him on that table. And then they don't even, no anesthetic. They just put a needle like in his eye. That fucking movie.
sharp things towards the eye. That's another thing.
Yeah.
That I can't deal with. Like if someone even has a knife and they're not like even pointed at me, but just near I just walk across the room and just stay there because I can't be near it. Eyes and sharp things.
A friend, we went over to this friend's house for brunch and we were doing dishes afterwards. And then she casually was talking and she moved a knife, probably a solid foot away from my face. It wasn't really close. And then I was like, whoa, you got to watch what you're doing there. And she's like, what? Oh, and then playfully did it. And she got close and I was livid. I almost left. And then I love her. She's a friend. But that's still in my head. Whenever I think of her, that pops up first because I'm like, you can't just wave a fucking knife near my eyes, man. I need these.
Yeah. They're so
They're
fragile.
the consistency of, I think in high school, they in the shop class, it said your eyes are the consistency of cream cheese, of warm cream cheese.
That's going to stick with me.
Yeah. It really did. I was like, oh my God, anything could take them out. How do any of us still have eyeballs?
I have
all
no
of this
idea.
shit moving around in the world. How have we not all lost our eyes at this point?
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, just, I don't know. I have a friend.
We should all have goggles on.
Yeah, I have a friend who woke up and her eye just fell out.
No.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
She was on risk about it, but her eye just fell out. She drank. She drank one night. She got drunk, and her eye was out when she woke up.
Wait. Okay, wait, you said she was on risk about it?
She told the story on risk.
Oh, on risk.
On the podcast.
I thought you meant there was a risk, a
no.
pre-existing condition or something like that. And so it was not expected at all. She got drunk. Did she she blacked out?
I mean, she has sort of a bulge. She said that there was she just woke up with a fucking eye hanging out. Connected to the optic nerve. Her name is Mindy. She was on risk. If you want to hear the whole story.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up.
Yeah,
that's fuck, man. That's
right?
I don't want to hear it. I absolutely don't want to hear it, but I need to hear it.
It's fucked up.
That's so scary.
That's right. I mean, my eye will fall out. And, that can happen. Just knowing that your eye can fall out. That's terrible.
Jeez, man. What are you doing to me?
Fuck eyes.
Yeah, fuck them.
That's not good.
Oh, fuck. What were we even... Oh, because, the needle. We were talking about him getting worked on. Yeah, they just didn't even care that he was screaming and clearly terrified, in pain and stuff. And also, so normally I hate aliens as a antagonist because it's kind of I never know if I'm pronouncing this right. Is it Deus Ex Machina? Deus Machina?
If you got it right or wrong, I couldn't tell you.
It's in Latin. It's something about by the hand of God or something like that. Meaning, when you are telling a story, it's just this you've got this interesting story and you're doing all this shit, and then you get to the end and you're like, how do I wrap this up? And then you just have this outside force come and save the day or fuck shit up or something like that. like just a character that was introduced at the top of the movie barges in with a minigun and shoots everybody up, and it's like logically you have no idea how this character got to that point in the movie, like to save them, but they just did, and you just roll with it. It's that type of shit. So with Aliens, I feel like that's kind of where it goes a lot. Like within like the second season of American Horror Story, like this one character was going to kill a person, and then these aliens came in and stopped him for some reason.
Yeah,
and they never explain why. Yeah. So Aliens always frustrated me because I was like, there's no rules with aliens. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and there's no like, you can't plan along with the characters. Aliens just do whatever the fuck, and you just hope they don't fuck things up too bad.
Sure.
So I always am frustrated with aliens. I wasn't at all frustrated in this movie, probably because the movie was less about the aliens and more about the people coping with the fear of the potential abduction and stuff.
Yeah.
But they also, like, the little insight that they gave us on these aliens was so bizarre. Like, first off, you never see aliens with spacesuits. That was an interesting detail.
Yeah.
Like, and that makes sense because if we went to a different planet, we wouldn't assume that we could just live on that planet. So why would these higher beings assume that they can just walk around without space gear and shit?
And the spacesuits look like the descriptions of most aliens.
Yeah, and then the aliens had like the weird wrinkly pink skin. I loved all these details. It was just so interesting. And yeah, that was a fun detail because it was like, oh, do people think they're little gray, big-eyed things because like their spacesuits, like that type of shit.
Yeah, like someone would see an astronaut and go, "Oh, humans, they have one big eye," and
yeah, exactly.
And they're white with a bunch of weird patches on.
And then just the level, like they're like so advanced, but their ship seemed very organic and filthy. Like it seemed like it was running off of humans or something. Like I don't know what the cages were. Yeah. I like loved the limited details that they gave us because it wasn't about them really. I don't know. It was a great movie.
Yeah. It's about a traumatic experience that happens to someone and how he deals with it.
Yeah.
Or how the people around him deal with it, and those weird sort of insights of the ship and the suits and things. Like that's, in my mind, that's a firsthand account of how that actually is.
Yeah.
Because, this is quote unquote a true story and from his point of view.
Right.
And that would explain a lot of other alien sightings. But I think another thing is we talk about like animals and nature that we're at the top of it. We're at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
But I mean, this movie be like, no, we're not. We have, we're the same as all the other animals with one step above us that can come down and treat us the way we treat animals. I should really be a vegetarian, I guess is what I'm saying.
I get it. When you start thinking about like just crows, how fucking intelligent crows are, you're like, man, like, are they smarter than I am? Like,
yeah.
Like, I was listening to this thing about bees. Oh, fuck, it was also the Cracked. I gotta stop referencing the Cracked podcast on this show. But like, they were talking about bees and like the way they communicate, and like they send out bees to like different locations to scout like where they should live, and then they have like a town hall meeting and do like little dances to like cast their vote of where they should go live, and then whatever place wins, they all go live there. And it's just like, it's such an incredibly complicated process that you think these mindless little drones are just floating around and just land somewhere and they're like, all right, I guess we live here now. But they put in so much like research, and it blew me away. I had no idea. And they're just so much more intelligent than you really give any of them credit for.
Right. Yeah. Do you know what a Jainist is?
No.
A Jainist is a religion, I think, more Eastern tradition.
I've definitely heard it. I took like a bunch of theology classes in high school or in college, but I cannot remember most of it.
They think that everything has souls.
Yeah.
Every single thing, even plants.
Yeah. Oh, are they the ones they like sweep before they walk?
Yes, they don't crush any bugs.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I feel like we should all live like that.
Yeah.
But that'd be very hard to do.
It'd be so difficult.
Yeah.
But how fucking peaceful would that be?
It'd be good. It'd be cold.
Yeah.
They can't wear clothes.
Well, so with the aspect of everything having souls, how do they eat?
Nuts mostly, I think.
Yeah.
Nuts and berries, like things that...
And they just pay respect to it. Oh, because that doesn't kill the plant.
Mm-hmm.
They just take the berries and shit.
Yeah.
Damn. So I guess like fruit. fruits and well, not vegetables. I feel like vegetables are generally,
if it can be replenished.
Yeah.
If it can come back and it doesn't harm the plant from taking it.
that's a limited diet.
Right?
Jeez.
Just like apples, like things off trees.
Yeah.
Probably things that fall on their own too, because you didn't want to hurt the plant.
Yeah. Shit.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
See, and it's like, it's funny because it's like we're sitting here talking about like it would suck for aliens to do that to us. It sucks that we do that to animals. And then these people are taking it to this like arguably extreme measure. But then to them, they're probably looking at us like, well, you're doing it. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's so weird how you can detach yourself from.
Well, and I'm sure there's some like hardline Jainists and more liberal Jainists.
Yeah.
That are like, well, that guy uses cotton.
Yeah.
So he's a piece of shit.
Yeah. And then that guy's like, yeah, but I didn't kill the lamb to get the cotton. The lamb's fine, or the sheep is fine. Like, what do you mean I'm a piece of shit? That's definitely got to be an argument in that community.
Right. Yeah. And then, I mean,
so they probably don't say piece of shit.
Yeah. It's all like weird moral relativism. And like, it feels like the only way that you can be like a good person that affects nothing is to not be a person or exist in general, because it's just goes, that's just the law of nature of, predators and prey and, I don't know. Like, so the only thing you can do is not take away from others is not be around, which is a sad thought.
Yeah. Yeah. But we've definitely had the conversation of you just wanting to go live in a cabin in the woods.
Right.
It seems so peaceful. I'd probably go crazy. I want to be wealthy enough to where I have the option to just dip off for like 6 months at a time. Mm-hmm. Like Zach Galifianakis has that farm. Yeah. I would love that to just have a place that I could go to and just be so far away from everything.
It seems that's
the only reason I want money, so I can still be part of humanity, but I can escape from it.
That's There Will Be Blood quote, I think, where he goes, I just want enough money so I don't have to deal with people anymore.
Oh really?
Yeah,
I haven't seen it. I'm so bad at seeing movies.
It's a good one. It's a dark one. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I like it. That's Paul Thomas Anderson. I don't know. Yeah, I think that like I want when I talk about moving in the middle of nowhere, I want everything in terms of having my cake and eating it too, because I love like the city. I love the energy and the community and things like that, and I also love isolation. So I don't know. I think like living in something that can afford me both, like you said, disappear for 6 months, or whatever. It's hard because like. Yeah, I want isolation, but at the same time to belong to people. I just want a commune. I want a cult. Everyone says I'm doing great.
That's the most like advantage that you take of these people is just like they have to like just give you compliments and pats on the back every day. Yeah. Other than that, it's fine. Yeah, there's no risk.
You guys have to like me.
Man, that sounds perfect. Well, so like just to wrap this up, do you have the fear still? Are you afraid of abduction? Aliens in general?
Not really. I've recently gotten to this guy named David Paulides, who talks about missing 411. It's where there's a rash of disappearances in national parks and just crazy paranormal things that happen and people disappearing. And so I could see some things coming back. Yeah. But like mostly in national parks.
I was thinking when you were, because like you're like, I would like to live in the cabin. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, that puts you right back in that scary place.
Right. Yeah.
But rural.
Yeah.
Seeing the sky shit.
I don't know. I would have to do it more. I got 2 camping trips planned for this next month. Yeah. So I'll report back on tell you how scared I was.
Hell yeah, dude. Are you like legit camping, like isolated?
One's in a bus, and the other one it will just be like a tent. Yeah, but it'll be a campground, so it's not going to be too crazy. Yeah, that's what. Because
like, excuse me, when I grew up, I used to go camping every year, but it was at a campground, so like your closest camping neighbor was like 30 feet away, and it was like a road. It was roads, and you would just like it was kind of like set up like a little neighborhood, Mm-hmm. So like each campsite is really close to the next one. When you say campground, do you mean like, is it like isolated? Like, are you going to be off or are you going to be near people?
It's going to be near people, but it's not going to be like a very populated campground, but there'll be people around.
See, that's another thing. We went during a special weekend. They would put on like this, it was called the Halloween camping weekend, and people would go just for that weekend. And then like there was like a night that they treated it like it was Halloween, because this was in October. Mm-hmm. but it was like early October. And then, so you'd go trick-or-treating at all the campsites. So I guess thinking about it, if we had gone any other time of the year, it would probably be pretty empty.
Yeah.
We'd probably have like hundreds of yards to ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
I travel enough now to where I get in a lot of situations where I'd be very uncomfortable in the past, very scared in the past, and I'm fine. So hopefully I've gotten over it, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think it's around anymore.
It never goes away entirely, but it doesn't rule your life at all.
It can jump in and out of my brain at times.
Yeah. That's what most of the episodes, like most of the people I've talked to, that's kind of like what it is. Is it's like you eventually get to a point where you can't let it control you. It can't be.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you just get tired of it. Like if somebody was like flicking you in the head every day, you'd be annoyed with it at first, and eventually you just be like, well, this is my life, I guess. So it's just like one of those things where you just move on, but you still are aware that it's fucking in your brain.
Yeah. And it comes to a point where you just got to go, this is me fucking with me.
Yeah.
You know, and I have to acknowledge that there's nothing to be afraid of. This is something that's wrong with me. So, stop it.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Well, I'm glad you're doing good, man.
Oh,
Is there anything else you wanted to say about this? Like about the movie, about any of the fears or anything?
not really. I mean, it's on Netflix, so you can check it out.
Yeah, check that out. I really enjoyed this movie.
Yeah?
It was first off, for some reason I thought it was a documentary. So I was at this party last night telling everybody that I'm gonna wake up tomorrow and watch this like weird documentary about people that think they got abducted. So anyone who I talked to last night is going to think I'm a fucking jackass. They're like, does Charlie not know what a documentary is? I don't remember why I thought it was. I think it was because you said it was based on a true story in the Getting Around to It episode. So my head just went to documentary for some reason.
Yeah.
But it is a really good movie. I was kind of surprised with how much I enjoyed it. It's just like really well done, well shot.
Well,
good movie.
I think it treats the idea of alien abduction in a way where it's like how it would happen in real life.
Yeah. Because
a lot of alien movies are like, oh fuck, their lasers froze me, whatever. But this is like something fucked up happened, and I'm confused and scared, and it affected me in a very traumatic way. And then everyone's like, yeah, that's right, and that's the whole movie. Because when you start assigning meaning and knowledge to things you have no idea what they mean, then that's where you lose me. But this whole movie is like something fucked up happened.
Yeah, and they don't try to like make up all these different reasons why it may or may not have happened. They don't fight the aliens. They just deal with it like humans would. Yeah. It's just such an interesting aspect. Like.
And there's gaps in knowledge of like how long, where was he doing the whole time? They don't know, so we don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's how it would work.
Yeah. It was a good one. So yeah, check that out on Netflix. Be sure to watch that. Zach, do you have, what would you like to plug?
I will plug Getting Around to It since
Getting
we
Around
talked
to It.
about that.
Great podcast.
It's where we make people watch movies that they should have seen a long time ago. We talk about them. Last two we had were Braveheart and A League of Their Own. I think the next one we're doing is Usual Suspects.
Oh, nice.
So, I mean, that's fun. And VHS, first Fridays at North, where we watch old VHS tapes and make fun of them.
Very fun show.
I enjoy it. It's one of my favorite things to do. And then Arguments and Grievances. First Sundays, both at North now. Arguments and Grievances is moving.
Oh, cool.
At North, and the next one will be in August, the first Sunday in August, 8 p.m., Comedy Debates, Comedy Expo.
Oh, yeah, the Comedy Expo.
I think that's it.
Yeah, and Arguments and Grievances is also a podcast.
That's true.
So it's not just the live show. If you're in Chicago, come check out VHS and Arguments and Grievances. But if you're not in Chicago, at least check out Arguments and Grievances, the podcast.
Yep. We release stuff from Chicago, wherever we travel to, and then a lot of Denver stuff too.
Cool. And then like Twitter or anything?
At Mr. Zach Peterson.
Mr. Zach Peterson. Fuck yeah. And like usual, you can find me on Twitter at Charlie Rohr, ROHRER. And my Tumblr is hearmeroar.tumblr.com. Once again, ROHRER. Cool. Thanks, man, for doing the fucking podcast.
Thanks for having me.